Hello students, welcome to La Excellence. Welcome to the third session in economic survey, where till now we focused most of the analytical areas in economic survey. But from now we will be focusing more on the questions which usually comes for prelims. The reason for this is, from now on the chapters that we are seeing is actually talking about some of the factual informations. Whenever you look at previous year questions, whether it is in geography or economy, we usually call it economic geography, where they may ask about questions like, in which country do we see more cattle being present? Sometimes the question may come about certain minerals. Sometimes it may be with respect to certain job aspects. People get confused from where we should actually read for these topics. And they think it can come from NCERT books or so, but the NCERT information is much older. So what exactly should we do now? Or what should be the source for preparation of such questions? Because these are the questions which give you an edge over others. So if that is the point, what exactly should we do to read or observe these points? In this economic survey, if you have noticed, in the last session, I spoke about the apparel industry and also about the clothes industry, where we talked about countries like China, Indonesia, and later India comes into the picture in terms of the exports of these goods. So these are the analysis which UPSC takes, and they make prelims type of question where they may ask you, tell which country has the highest export share in this particular good. Similarly, in this session we'll come across lot of terms which are specific from prelims economy point of view, and I'll also show you certain factors and concepts which are important from geography point of view. There are some theories, some specific examples, not just from GS geography point of view, but for geography optionals as well. If there are students of geography optional, you come across Zipf's theory here, where they have focused about different cities and the size of these cities. So it is very, very important to read the second part of economic survey, highlight the points, lines which are important, and use them in our exams to score maximum marks. So, in this one stretch, we'll be covering the entire economic survey, where we'll be focusing on those areas which are important from both prelims and mains. I'll show you the lines, and I'll also tell you what type of questions can be expected and the reasons for that, so that you have confidence in those questions and spend time in preparing those. So guys, let's look at the third page of this particular chapter. In the third page, we actually come across gross fixed capital formation to GDP ratio at current prices. If you have looked at the GDP, many people who are criticizing the new GDP numbers are actually based upon the capital formation or the capital expenditure of the government, which has reduced. Banks are not giving loans, corporate debt is there, the twin balance sheet, and also the amount or expenditure of the government in the capital formation is also less. If that is the case, from 2011 onwards it has reduced consistently. Then how has the GDP improved is the question which few people are asking. And even the Congress 2 days before budget, they released their own economic survey or their own economic analysis of the country, where they focused about this issue again. So what exactly can be the question about the gross fixed capital formation? It may be with respect to what are the measures taken by the RBI to increase the gross capital formation. One is the ease of doing business and also improving the twin balance sheet problem. So apart from these two, we also have to look at the government expenditure, where we need to look at the capital expenditure and the revenue expenditure of the government. We know that capital expenditure actually looks at the capital formation. But whenever the central government gives some money to the state government in the form of grants, the state governments may use this money for the capital formation. But this money which is given in the form of grants is usually calculated at the central government in revenue expenditure. So, if we have to know actual capital expenditure, then we have to look at the capital expenditure of the central government, and we also have to look at a part of the assets which are actually used by the state government for capital formation. When we combine these two, it is easy for us to understand how much expenditure has actually happened. So UPSC may ask you, actual capital expenditure of the country can be calculated by considering which of the following. At that point of time, you have to write about this particular thing. I'll show you where exactly this expenditure is given. In page 144, the first paragraph itself actually talks about this. You can see here all grants given to the state governments and union territories are treated as revenue expenditure, but a part of these grants are used for creation of capital assets. So this is what I was talking about. And then they talk about the outstanding liabilities of the central government, which includes internal debt and internal liabilities like provident fund, small savings, etc. These 2 points are very, very important for us. Then in this paragraph, they actually compare the real GDP and nominal GDP with respect to inflation. That is, the nominal GDP growth declining in the year despite an acceleration of the real GDP because of decline of inflation or decline in inflation. So here they are actually talking about what is the impact that we are actually observing because of decline in inflation on GDP. So this can be a question directly in the exam. So please be careful about this point. Then can you see table in the same page where they actually focus about the major expenditure categories of the union government? They may ask you what comes under revenue expenditure and what comes under capital expenditure. These type of questions are already seen. I would suggest you to go through these topics and tables carefully. You need not look at the numbers, only look at the headings and see where what type of expenditure is usually seen. Fine. Now let's move to the next important topic in the book. So in page 146, you can see the table with respect to WPI and CPI, right? So when we look at the WPI and CPI, I told you about the wedge and all. What is more important is the weightage and the difference. Please try to read about this carefully. Every definition of inflation is important for us. If you can highlight these points and if you can prepare and revise it in the last minute, remember, high possibility that you may get confused. They may ask in any format. They may ask you to tell which among the following has the highest weightage, or they may also ask you to arrange the following according to their weightage. So it's very important for you to remember all the weights. Please be careful. One is with respect to GDP, the other one is with respect to inflation. High possibility that questions keep repeating in these areas. So guys, please look at this once more. Then in the next page, we have to look at the Monetary Policy Committee which was established. I told you this is the most important thing the government has done, and lot of people were praising about the government's move on this. High possibility in economy there can be a question on this. So this committee has met twice and it has come out with certain things which they need to follow. There is high possibility that before your prelims exam they may meet again and they may ask you questions about it. But till now, what were the major highlights? If we look here, we can see that the government has fixed the inflation target of 4% with tolerance level of plus or minus 2% for the period beginning from 5th August 2016 to March 31st, 2021. They can pick the statement like this and give you directly, where they may make mistake in these numbers. So please be careful. Factual errors are also increasing nowadays in prelims. Then we have to look at the terms like liquidity adjustment facility and marginal standing facility, which keeps changing regularly. Don't worry much about it, but you should know the definitions for these. So then the next important thing is in page number 150, where the focus is on measures to strengthen corporate bond market. In the corporate bond market, they are actually talking about what are the measures taken by the RBI. One is issue of rupee dominated masala bonds, and SEBI is authorizing the mediators to play a very important role with respect to corporate bonds. And they also talk about banks allowed to increase the partial credit enhancement and permitting primary dealers to act as market makers for government bonds. So mains question, they may ask you with respect to measures taken to strengthen corporate bond market. Because of NPAs, banks are not giving money, and the balance sheet problem is creating lot of problem for the corporates to get money from the banks as well. So at that point of time, what needs to be done, or what are the other measures taken by the RBI, can be a question, prelims or mains, but I would see mostly this question can come in mains. So please be prepared about this particular topic. Then see page number 152, where they talk about the imports and exports. They say USA followed by UAE and Hong Kong were the top export destinations. Imports, if you see, China followed by UAE and USA. Can you see UAE is second in both imports and exports? And the UAE king also came, the prince also came for the Republic Day. So there is high possibility that they may ask you question about this. Sometimes what UPSC does, among the following countries, which one has highest imports or which one has highest exports? At that point of time, they may not give the first country. So the second country you should be knowing, that is UAE here, right? So this particular topic is important. Please be careful. UAE is in news, and anything about UAE can be interesting for us, even when you are talking about international relations. And if you are talking about India-UAE relations, then you can use these points as well, right? So then in page 153, there is a table for you which actually talks about the summary of balance of payments. There are a lot of terms given here in your economy book. Please try to go through these definitions and try to remember, no need of any numbers, right? Then in the same page, we come across two terms, that is nominal effective exchange rate and real effective exchange rate. What is the difference between these two? Inflation will be included. Purchasing power parity will be included. So what exactly is this? So if a currency appreciates with respect to NEER, then what is it? If it decreases, what is it? What is the impact of that? These are the questions which can actually come. Then they may ask you Mexican peso, South African rand, Chinese renminbi. It can come in match the following. Most of the people will be aware about Chinese, but Mexican and South African may be important as well. So please be careful about these factual data. Then in page 154, you come across World Bank's International Debt Statistics 2017. This is very, very important for us. So please try to go through this once, right? They're actually talking about World Bank and International Debt Statistics. Fine. So they may ask about the report. Please be careful. In page 156, we have to look at the price policy of agricultural produce. Here with respect to pulses, minimum support price, there was a report and it was actually headed by Arvind Subramanian. This report was given in PIB. It also formed part of Yojana. So please be careful. Any question can come from this report. There is an appendix here which actually talks about the highlights of this report. I'll show you that. But please try to read this particular topic from mains point of view once, right? And Arhar is the pulse which is in news and is explained in this from geography point of view. Look at various uses and the patterns where exactly this is grown. So then open page number 163, where we have to focus about the problems with the education sector. 8.71, 8.72, please try to see, they talk about teachers' absenteeism. For that they talk about biometric access. If this can be implemented, then we would see that the teacher absenteeism reduces in the rural areas, is what they talk. These are very general in nature. If you read once, it's more than enough. And then in the same page in 8.74, you have life expectancy has doubled and infant mortality and crude death rates have reduced sharply. So this fact may be important. They may give two statements. Life expectancy in India has doubled and infant mortality and crude death rates has reduced. If they ask something of that sort, it will be very, very important for you. So please be careful. These are the statements where we cannot come to conclusion whether it has increased or decreased, right? So then in the next page, they actually talk about the high levels of anemia prevalent among women in the age group of 15 to 49, especially which has direct correlation with MMR. So they may ask you with respect to high levels, which one of the following is one of the main reasons for increased MMR, and they may ask you in which states anemia is present more. So these type of factual information will be present only in economic survey and not anywhere else. So please be careful about these facts. And then in the next page they actually talk about the inclusive policies of the government, where they talk with respect to disabilities and also with respect to minorities, different schemes of the government. For this, the India yearbook will be very much beneficial rather than going through this. Then we have to look at climate change. This particular topic from both prelims and mains point of view, please try to read as much as possible. The reason why I repeatedly say with respect to climate change is that the facts which are given here, if you want, you can see 2014-15 questions, both prelims and mains. You see at least one question from climate change, and most of it are usually directly from the economic survey. At least in the mains, when you're writing points about climate change, this particular topic will be beneficial. I don't want to say which line is important because everyone would have read about these in their current affairs or in environment and ecology, but this particular topic is very, very important for you in the economic survey. Please go through every line of this. Then please see page number 170. So I actually talked about the report, and here is about the positives and benefits or the summary of the reports. I would say before mains you can see this, but please go through the report once. It will be very, very beneficial for your answer writing. So guys, next let's take the next chapter, that is universal basic income. From now it is very easy for us to look at the points because hardly there are few points which are important from prelims point of view. I'll explain the concept which is there here and help you to mark some of the points which you have to read in this particular chapter. This chapter is important mainly from mains point of view, not from prelims point of view. High possibility that this topic may be asked in your essay. So my request to you is, please ensure that you go through this universal basic income before mains carefully. Some points which I show from prelims point of view may be beneficial. So here, as the heading says, a conversation with and within Mahatma, it actually talks about what exactly Mahatma Gandhi talks about actions of every individual and the state. It says that every state has to think about the poor. Whenever they are working for the people, they should try to analyze whether their action has any impact on the poorest of the poor or not. At the same time, Mahatma Gandhi also argues that if you are giving anything for free, then the economy will be ruined. So give jobs and then give money. So don't give anything for free. So the entire argument of this chapter is also, if we give universal basic income to the poor, will they stop working. So the economic survey says that it is exaggerated. In many countries that is not the case. So they say we can follow that in India as well. And the second problem they talk about is to whom we should give. They talk about universality, that is majority of the people should get it. But can we give it to Ambanis? So they say we have to go for some voluntary measures to eliminate, or at least we should try to cover 75% of the people on certain basic conditions so that we can avoid these exclusion errors. So this is the debate in this particular one. And they also talk about till now there are different programs made by the government to eliminate poverty. But unfortunately, we are unable to do that. So they say, yes, we can have these schemes, but apart from these schemes, we have to focus on universal basic income, which will be very necessary for the poor people, as the money directly goes into their accounts through the JAM Trinity on the direct benefit transfer, and it is up to the people to use. They also say that there should not be any conditions for giving this. You should not say that you should work, no conditionality should be there, or this money has to be used only for this particular purpose. So the positives and negatives about the universal basic income is actually debated in this particular chapter. So if you have to quote anything from this in your mains exam, you can actually quote the Mahatma Gandhi's two quotes which are given here itself, right? Then quickly I'll show you the words or points that you have to write with respect to this. And don't worry, the central government has not yet agreed on this. They want to set up a committee and look at the positives and negatives, and then they want to take this up forward. So let us see whether it happens or not before prelims. If it happens, there may be a question, then come back and read this chapter, else you can leave, right? So let's move on quickly. So the first thing it actually talks is in page 173, where they talk about universality, unconditionality, and agency. These are the three things. Universality, I told you, 75%, unconditionality, no conditions, agency is through cash. So these are the three basic conditions under which UBI should work. Why? It is for social justice, poverty reduction, and other headings which are actually given. Just go through these headings once, it is more than enough. And I'm telling you, for mains, not for prelims. And then they actually talk about the conceptual case against UBI, where they talk, will it take away the incentive to work? This we need to carefully look once, right? So they say not necessarily. So you can also argue that it is exaggerated if you are actually talking about the universal basic income. The chapter actually looks at the failure of different schemes of the government to alleviate poverty. So we need not worry about this as well. Don't look at the failures. Or if you have to prove your point that UBI is good, then you have to talk about certain failures of certain schemes till now to alleviate poverty. At that point of time, it will be very easy for you to talk about the benefits that are usually present here. So for argument purpose, it will be beneficial, but nothing much to see in this chapter. In the last page of this chapter, that is page number 192, there are two important points. Let's see what it is. That is, choice to persuade and establish the principle of replacement, not additionality, and UBI for women. They're actually talking about UBI for women as well. So these two, what is the benefit of UBI for women? So from social issues point of view, this point can be beneficial for you. So just see these 2 points once, it is more than enough. So next, let's move quickly to the next chapter in page number 213. So in this chapter, the focus is about convergence in economy and health across the states. So actually, the chapter looks in that why in India there is huge inequality between the states. Some states are doing fairly well, their income is increasing, and some states are not doing well at all. Why there is lack of convergence? And here they also talk about the health and other indicators. For us, the analysis is very less important, but the factual information with respect to different states is very, very important. So let's see which are these facts. So first, we have to see between 1984 and 2014, the least developed state Tripura increased its GSDP 5.6-fold, and the median state Himachal Pradesh increased by 4.3. These are some of the factual information which UPSC can directly give you and they may expect you to know. So please be careful about these facts whichever I show, especially from the economic survey. It takes hardly 5 minutes for you to remember it. So once if you do that, it is easy for you. Then look at page number 219. In page 219, you will come across 10.17. If a state or country is poor, the returns to capital must be high and should be able to attract capital and labor, thereby raising its productivity and enabling to catch up with richer states or countries. But unfortunately, this is not happening in India is the concern, right? They are actually arguing that if something is poor, if state is poor, labor availability will be more and they will be cheaply available. So if anyone is investing, then the returns or profits will be usually high. So this is enough for the states to receive more funds. Only they will not receive funds if the state is anti-FDI or anti-investments. But if that is not the case, then why can't it happen is the argument. But here we need to understand that this chapter is focusing about different states. What are the issues that are present? Very less possibility that you may get question on these statements. So I'm not stressing them, but for analysis purpose, page 219, if you can see once, it is more than enough. Then please see page number 232. In page 232, 11.4, where they actually talk about the sub-federalism, or they're talking about cities. So this is very, very important for us. Please look at this carefully once. I'll show you how to use this in your geography articles. In this chapter, there is a focus on a theory called as gravity model, where they say that investments are more, or business, transport, labor, everything is more in certain cities. And there is advantage to actually go and set up industries in these cities. So industrial location theory, for that these facts may be important. I'm talking only to the geography optional guys. If there is any possibility of question in GS geography, just see once. But I would say this is very important from geography optional point of view. This chapter and the next few chapters are important from optionals point of view. Others based on the theories you can use in your optionals as well. See page number 239, where they actually talk about the evidence of the gravity model. In the next page, they actually talk about distance, state GDP coefficients, proximity coefficient and language coefficient. Distance is very, very important from geography point of view. We usually have a tendency to believe that if the distance between the place or the market and where we need to purchase is more, usually the tendency for people to go there reduces. The industrial location in that area is not advantageous, so we need to shift the place. You have different theories. The gravity model will actually talk about the distance, but in your answers, if you can talk about state GDP coefficients, proximity coefficient and language coefficient, not just for business but also for people movement, it will be very, very important. Then please see page number 243, where they talk about the legal provisions which are present in our constitution to unite the country, where they talk about most favored nation status which is there within our constitution, and they also talk about the nationality principle. You might have read about these two from the WTO point of view. Even our constitution under article 301, 302, 303, they actually talk about these provisions. We say that one state should not differentiate between other states whenever they come across the taxes. That is, if Karnataka wants to put tax, it should not differentiate that on Tamil Nadu I'll put more tax, or for Tamil Nadu I'll put more tax, and for Andhra Pradesh I'll put less. So this type of differentiation should not be there. So this is the argument that is actually present here, right? So later you will also look at MFN and nationality with respect to the WTO also. My suggestion to you is, please look at these points from the polity point of view. In prelims, they may ask you this, as it is mentioned specifically in the economic survey. Then let's quickly move to page 266. In that, they actually talk about female migration for work not only grew far more rapidly than the female workforce, but increased at nearly twice the rate of male migration. Female migration has doubled. So this is very, very important for us. They may ask you factual data about this, right? In this chapter, the focus is more on migration. In migration and out migration of several cities are given and states are given. So we need to look at this. Here I'll show you some geographical theories that have been given as well. So if you see page number 272, we actually come across in migration and out migration that is happening, and we also come across the loss of migration propounded by Ravenstein, where he says there is a process of absorption whereby people immediately surrounding a rapidly growing town move into it, and the gaps they leave are filled by migrants from more distant areas, and so until the attractive force is spent. That is, if you have a city, Bangalore, people will be coming from the nearby places first. That is Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Maharashtra. Then you will see people from UP, MP and other places following in, if there is any space left. So this is Ravenstein theory, and these paragraphs talk about it. High possibility you may get a question in mains, and geography optional. If you can use this, your answers will be valuable much. Then see page number 275, where the focus is on the gravity model for migration. Here you have to look at the theory carefully. As I have already told you, high possibility you can get a question on this. Next, let's quickly move to page 285, where the focus is actually about the special category states, and it is also talking about two Indias. They say that in India there are certain states which receive more aid in forms of grants. It can be through special category status. And there are other states which are mineral rich. And the states which receive aid, they should develop, or the states which have more mineral reserves. Here they take the case of Uttarakhand, Chhattisgarh and also Jharkhand, and they see whether these states have performed better. So is grants important for states to grow, or is there any need of mineral reserves? The conclusion here is that we have not seen much positive or negative with respect to mineral resources, but the grants has definitely not helped much. So what exactly should be seen? Some factual data. But before we start, we should look at what exactly is special category status. They have given all the factual informations with respect to special category states. As we are aware, Andhra Pradesh is actually requesting central government to grant the special category state. So every information about this can be a question in prelims or mains, especially the conditions under which they actually get the special category status is very, very important for us. So please go through this carefully once. Then in the next page, they actually talk about the redistributive resources, where they say that if, for example, the state has lot of mineral reserves, and if it is giving in aid to the people, or if money is transferred to the people, then the problem is the Dutch disease. That is, when oil was actually seen in the North Sea, the people, they got lot of money and it was distributed to the people. When this happened, the services sector became very much costly and the manufacturing and other things reduced a lot. This had lot of impact on the economy of that country. This is called as Dutch disease. This was seen in other developed countries as well. So UPSC may ask you, what is Dutch disease? So please be careful about it. Then see page number 292, where you usually come across first, the exploitation of natural resources leads to increased corruption, and they also talk about ownership exposes countries to commodity price volatility, which can destabilize GDP, and the Dutch disease issue. So not required, but just see once that what are the impacts if a state has more natural resources on their economy. Then in page number 295, you have conclusion. Please read this conclusion carefully, where they say that if you need to improve the GSDP of the states, then you need infrastructure and connectivity. In the next page, they actually talk about redistributive resource transfers, especially redirecting flow to households, making governance contingent transfers, that is, governance needs to be improved. And then with respect to national resource revenues, they say that there is no negative impact much, it's almost neutral. You need not worry much about this, but they say rather than going for any other transfer of fund, UBI is the best method. That is universal basic income. If you can establish and give it to the people, it will reach the people properly rather than going through any other measures. So guys, at last, let's move to the last chapter where we are focusing about the sub-federalism. That is, we are actually talking about cities, right? When we are talking about cities, lot of issues are there with respect to cities. It may be with respect to urban floods, it may be with respect to pollution, air quality index, and also what is more important is the population. Urban Indians now form about 1/3 of the population, and they produce more than 3/5 of the country's GDP. So here I told you a lot of geography theories are also important. This is one point that is very, very important for us. Then in the next page, we can actually see 14.5 carefully. This is ZIP-LA, which says that the city with the largest population in any country is generally twice as large as the next biggest, 3 times the size of the third biggest, and so on. Nth ranked city would be 1 by nth the size of the largest city. So this is ZIP rule, and it says India is not in tandem, and they say countries like Brazil and United States actually are following the ZIP rule. India is not following. So usually for your theory answers, if you need to write any examples, you can use this high possibility for geography optionals. There can be questions on this. Then in the next page, from polity point of view, they actually talk about the challenges that are present in the urban local bodies. So from governance point of view, what should be done? There was a recent debate that should there be direct mayor elections. So the economic survey says that it need not work. The main reason is if the mayor don't have support of the office, then they will not allow him to work. So it is not the solution, is what the economic survey says. But please look, can a directly elected mayor be in any form beneficial for the governance of the urban local bodies? Then in the next page, please look at this. The municipality, state departments and parasital agencies or civic agencies directly reported to the state government, and what are the problems and how to improve the service delivery. Then the second challenge is about the infrastructure deficit, that is with respect to water and power supply, waste management, public transport, education, healthcare, safety and pollution. We are also talking about the Millennium Development Goals and the problems associated. If we look at different reports about the cities, Indian cities rank least, that is, they are not performing well. We need to improve the functioning of our cities. Then in page number 304, the focus is actually about the finance given to this urban local bodies. What are the different sources? How to improve the sources? I hope you remember in some of the 8 important things about India, they talked about the money or rent taken from Bangalore and Jaipur, where they say that it is only 5% and 20% respectively of the potential. So they say that some of the services which are actually provided in the urban areas should be charged, and we should try to increase the money usually these people get. So if more funds go to the urban areas, then it is very easy for the urban areas to sustain. Then in next page there is a box which actually talks about different measures taken by the central government or different schemes which are actually associated for the development of cities. One is Smart City Mission, Amrut, Hriday and Swachh Bharat. Again, in India Yearbook we will be taking up these in detail, and the factual information which is required from exam will be available there. But along with that, my request is to please go through this carefully once. So guys, at last, see page 313 where they actually talk about the role of private sector in urban development. You can use this as example to talk about, is there any positive impact of the private sector in developing cities? So should we go for PPP mode is what we need to actually focus in this particular aspect, right? So guys, with this we have actually covered almost everything in the economic survey which is important from prelims and mains point of view. I hope the session was useful for you, and I would request you to give your valuable feedback and comments to the mail ID which I had given. I'll give you again. So please feel free to give your comments here, and if you have any queries, please feel free to ask us. At last, I would like to tell you, there are a lot of students who actually asked us that, sir, I'll write answers and give it to you. Will you evaluate? So we are coming up with this methodology where the way you're looking at the videos, we will be giving you analysis of your answers through these videos. There won't be face videos, but there will be voice. Whenever we are evaluating, we'll show where exactly you have done the mistake. So if you're interested, please mail it to us, so that if there are any questions, if you can just scan and upload it, I can evaluate and let you know where exactly you're doing mistake and how to improve. So along with this, if you need anything extra from us, please feel free to contact us, right? Thank you guys, thanks for watching. Please do subscribe.